Hello, and welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. You've arrived at a quiet moment, a space set aside for rest and calm. Whatever the day held for you, whatever thoughts may still be lingering, you can let them gently fade into the background now. For the next little while, this time is simply yours. Before we begin, feel free to share in the comments where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is for you. It's always wonderful to see how people from so many places come together here for a peaceful night's rest. And if you'd like to support the channel, please like and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. Now, take a moment to settle in. Find a comfortable position. Allow your breathing to slow, and give yourself permission to unwind. Tonight, we're going to take a journey together. A nighttime train ride through mountains and forests, across rivers and through sleeping towns. A journey with no destination that matters, no arrival that needs to be reached, no schedule that must be kept. Just the soft motion of travel, the warmth of the carriage, and the gentle rhythm of wheels on rails carrying us through the peaceful dark. It's a journey that asks nothing of you except that you rest, that you allow yourself to be carried, that you let the motion and the rhythm and the gentle descriptions ease you towards sleep. Between each breath, between each thought, there's a space, a small gap where nothing happens, where nothing is required. That space is always there, waiting for you to notice it, to rest in it, to allow it to expand. Tonight, as you take this journey, those spaces will grow larger, more present, more welcoming. The thoughts will become fewer and further between. The need to attend to anything will fade. And those spaces, those gaps of pure being, will merge together until they become the foundation of your experience rather than the interruption. But that's all ahead. For now, let's begin where all the best journeys begin, at a quiet station, late at night, where the rain is falling softly and a train is waiting, patient and warm, ready to carry you away into the peaceful darkness. The station appears through the mist like something from a half-remembered dream. It's late enough that the usual rush and noise of daytime travel has faded entirely, leaving behind only this peaceful hush, this sense of the world settling into its nighttime rhythms. The platform stretches long and empty beneath a row of old-fashioned lamps, each one casting a pool of amber light that glows warmly against the wet pavement. Rain falls in a whisper, so gentle it's barely more than a fine mist, touching your face with cool, clean softness as you step onto the platform, as you cross from wherever you came from into this in-between place, this threshold between one part of the night and another. The rain has been falling for hours, you can tell. Every surface is soaked, gleaming with moisture that catches and reflects the lamplight. Puddles have formed in slight depressions in the pavement, each one a small mirror reflecting the amber glow from above, creating doubled lights that shimmer when raindrops disturb the surface. The edge of the platform is marked by a painted yellow line, faded now with age and weather, and beyond it the rails lie silver and wet, disappearing into darkness in both directions. Above, the sky holds that particular quality of darkness that comes only in the deep hours of night. Not black, exactly, but a rich, velvety blue-gray, thick with moisture and the promise of continued rain. The clouds hang low, close enough that you feel you might touch them if you reached up, heavy and full and moving slowly in winds too high to be felt at ground level. The air smells of wet stone and earth, of distant pine forests and mountain slopes, and of that indefinable scent that clings to railway stations everywhere. Oil and metal, old wood and damp wool, the faint echo of 1,000 journeys, of people coming and going, of luggage and coal smoke and the peculiar electricity of travel. You're not in a hurry. The train won't leave until it's ready, and you won't board until you're ready, and the night won't end until it's good and ready. Everything moves at its own pace here, slower than the daytime world, more measured, more peaceful. Your footsteps sound soft and muffled on the platform, absorbed by the rain-soaked air, barely echoing at all. A few other travelers move slowly here and there, quiet figures in heavy coats carrying small bags, each person moving through their own cocoon of peaceful solitude, their own thoughts, their own reasons for traveling in the deep night. No one speaks. There's no need. The silence is shared, comfortable, full of mutual understanding. This is not a time for conversation, but for quiet contemplation, for the gentle transition from one state to another. The station building itself is old, built in another era when such structures were made to last for generations. The walls are honey-colored stone, quarried from somewhere in these hills perhaps, blocks fitted together with precision and care. Years of weather have darkened the stone in places, creating patterns and shadings that tell the story of countless rains, endless cycles of seasons. The roof is steeply pitched, covered in slate tiles that gleam darkly in the rain, and along the eaves, water drips steadily from a line of gutters, creating a soft percussion that underlies everything. Warm light spills from tall windows in the station building, and through them you can see a waiting room with wooden benches worn smooth by decades of use. A clock on the wall shows the late hour, its hands moving with patient slowness, marking time that feels less urgent here than it does in the daytime world. A small fireplace occupies one wall of the waiting room, and you can see embers glowing softly in its grate, pulsing gently with the breath of the chimney's drawer, red and orange, and offering the promise of warmth to anyone who needs it. But you won't go inside. Something draws you to remain on the platform, to feel the night air, to stay in this liminal space between one place and another, between one state of being and the next. A wooden bench stands against the station wall, protected by a slight overhang. Its paint has weathered to a soft grey-green, and its surface is darkened with rain. You could sit if you wanted, but you remain standing, walking slowly along the platform, your hand trailing along the station wall, feeling the texture of old stone beneath your fingertips, cool and slightly rough, solid and reassuring. At the far end of the platform, beyond the reach of the lamps, the railway tracks disappear into darkness. They run between low hills covered in grass and heather, heading toward mountains you can sense rather than see, great shapes of deeper darkness against the night sky, patient and ancient and impossibly still. The mountains have been there for millennia, will be there for millennia more, and they wait with perfect indifference for the small train that will pass through them, for the small human lives that will ride it, for the brief disturbance of metal and steam and light in their eternal darkness. The rain continues its gentle fall. You can hear it now, really hear it, once you stop and listen, the soft hiss of it in the air, the patter on the station roof, the plop and ripple as drops hit puddles, the whisper of it on stone and wooden rail. It's a peaceful sound, one of the most peaceful sounds there is, and it wraps around you like a blanket, like a cocoon, insulating you from all the harsh edges of the world. And then, from that darkness at the end of the tracks, comes the train. You see its light first, a warm, golden glow that appears in the distance, soft at first, barely distinguishable from a distant window or a lantern carried by some night traveler. But then it grows stronger, more defined, and you realize what it is, the headlamp of an approaching locomotive, cutting through the rain and mist, announcing its arrival from far down the line. It's not harsh or bright like modern lights, but gentle, almost candle-like, spilling out across the rails and the wet grass on either side of the tracks, illuminating the fine rain that falls through its beam like strands of silver thread. The train approaches slowly, unhurried, taking its time. There's no rush, no sense of urgency. It moves with the deliberate grace of something that knows its path, that has made this journey countless times before, that will make it countless times again. The sound reaches you next, a low, rhythmic rumble that you feel in your chest as much as hear with your ears. It's the sound of steady power held in careful check, of weight and momentum moving with deliberate grace, of pistons and wheels and the controlled explosion of steam driving machinery that has been refined over generations to this state of reliable perfection. Beneath that deep rumble, you can hear the clicking rhythm of wheels on rails, that eternal song of train travel, that pulse that has lulled so many travelers into peaceful rest, that has accompanied so many journeys through so many nights. Clickety-click, clickety-click, a rhythm as old as railways themselves, as familiar as a heartbeat, as comforting as breathing. As the train draws closer, you can make out its shape, a beautiful old locomotive, painted in deep forest green with brass fittings that catch the lamplight and throw it back in warm gleams and glints. The locomotive is substantial, powerful, its boiler round and smooth, its wheels tall and precisely balanced. Steam rises from somewhere near the front, white and clean and pure, dissolving into the rain-filled air almost as soon as it appears, adding to the mist and moisture that already fills the night. Behind the locomotive comes a string of carriages, each one a work of craftsmanship from an earlier age. They're painted in warm colors, burgundy and cream, deep blue and gold, rich browns, and forest greens. Each carriage glows from within with soft, inviting light, not the harsh fluorescence of modern trains but the warm, amber glow of proper lamps, the kind of light that makes you feel welcome even before you've boarded, that promises comfort and safety and a peaceful journey ahead. The windows of the carriages show glimpses of the interiors. Polished wood, soft upholstery, the curve of a seat back, the gleam of brass fittings. Here and there you see other passengers already aboard, settled in their seats, faces calm and peaceful in the gentle light. They look how you hope to feel soon, relaxed, comfortable, carried along by something larger and stronger than themselves. The train glides to a stop with barely a sound, just a gentle hiss of brakes and a final settling of weight on rails, a slight compression of the suspension, and then stillness. It sits there, breathing quietly. You can see the slight pulsing of steam, hear the tick and ping of cooling metal, sense the restrained power held in check, waiting with infinite patience for passengers to board, for the signal to depart, for the next phase of its endless journey through the night. Water beads on its painted sides, droplets catching the light and sliding slowly downward, leaving trails like tears on the smooth surfaces. The brass fittings glow warmly. The windows shine with welcoming light. Everything about the train speaks of shelter, of comfort, of a small moving haven of warmth in the cold, wet darkness. Doors open along the carriages, light spilling out onto the platform in golden rectangles, and the few waiting passengers begin to board. They move slowly, peacefully, in no particular hurry, finding their way into the warmth within. An elderly couple helps each other up the steps, their movements careful but unhurried. A young person with a backpack pauses at a door, looking back at the station once more before stepping inside. A figure in a long coat moves from the shadows at the far end of the platform, carrying what looks like a violin case, and boards a carriage near the front. You move with them, drawn by that gentle light, by the promise of shelter and comfort and the soft journey ahead. Your feet carry you toward the nearest door, and you realize that your breathing has already begun to slow, to deepen, matching itself to the patient rhythm of the waiting train. Your hand touches a brass rail mounted beside the door, and it's cool and smooth beneath your palm, worn to a soft sheen by countless hands before yours, by all the other travelers who have reached out to steady themselves as they boarded this train or trains like it. The metal is solid, reassuring, real. You step up into the carriage, one foot on the first step, then the other, lifting yourself from the platform into the train. The rain is left behind, falling onto stone and rail without you. The cool air is replaced by warmth. The darkness gives way to soft, amber light. You're inside now. You're aboard. The journey is about to begin. The interior of the carriage welcomes you like an embrace. The first thing you notice is the warmth, not overwhelming, not stifling, but just right, like stepping into a well-kept home on a winter evening. It wraps around you immediately, soaking into your clothes, your skin, driving away the slight chill that the rain outside had begun to create. The air is dry and clean, carrying the faint scent of something pleasant, lemon oil, perhaps, used to polish the wood, mixed with older smells that speak of the carriage's long history. Old fabric, wool, the ghost of tobacco smoke from decades past, and underneath it all, the particular smell of a train itself, that mixture of metal and oil and steam that's unlike anything else. Warm light comes from brass lamps mounted on the walls at intervals, their glass shades colored in amber and cream, casting everything in a gentle, honeyed glow that seems to soften every edge, every surface. The quality of the light is remarkable, not the harsh whiteness of modern fixtures but something warmer, more forgiving, more like firelight or candlelight. It makes everything look cozier, more intimate, more like home. The walls are paneled in dark wood, walnut, perhaps, or cherry, or some other rich hardwood that's been carefully selected and lovingly maintained. The panels run from floor to ceiling, each one fitted perfectly to its neighbors, the craftsmanship evident in every joint and seam. The wood has been polished to a soft sheen that reflects the lamplight without any harsh gleam, just a gentle glow that brings out the natural beauty of the grain. And what grain it is! Flowing patterns of waves and whirls, darker streaks and lighter patches, knots that create eyes and faces when your imagination is allowed to wander. You could spend hours following those patterns, finding new shapes and suggestions in the natural designs, but there's no need. They're just there, beautiful and calming, asking nothing of you except perhaps a moment of appreciation. The ceiling is paneled as well, divided into sections by brass strips that catch the light. Here and there, small ventilation grates allow fresh air to circulate, though you can barely feel the movement, just enough to keep the air from becoming stale, not enough to create a draft or any sense of chill. The floor is covered in carpet with a pattern of deep reds and forest greens, geometric designs that interlock and repeat in subtle variations. The carpet has been faded just enough by years of travel and sunlight and countless footsteps that it feels homey rather than new, comfortable rather than precious. You can tell that this is a space that's been used, lived in, traveled in by generations of passengers, and that history is part of its comfort. Your footsteps make no sound as you move down the aisle between the seats, the thick pile absorbing every impact, every sound, contributing to the overall sense of peace and quiet. The seats themselves are arranged in pairs on either side of the central aisle, each pair facing another pair across a small table. They're upholstered in soft fabric, velvet, perhaps, or a heavy chenille, in colors that complement the carpet: burgundy, navy, moss green, a deep russet brown. Each seat looks deep and comfortable, generously cushioned, with padding that extends from the base up through the back, promising support exactly where it's needed. The seat backs are high, offering a sense of privacy and enclosure, creating small nooks where a passenger can settle in and feel held, protected, separated from the rest of the world. At the top of each seat back is a small brass fitting, polished smooth by the touch of countless hands over the years, and above that, a white antimacassar with delicate lace edging, looking crisp and fresh against the dark fabric. You move slowly down the aisle, considering where to sit. Near the front, in the middle, toward the rear. Each location has its own appeal, its own particular view and feel. The seats near the front will show more of what's coming, the track ahead, the approaching landscape. The middle offers a sense of being in the heart of the train, surrounded and protected. The rear allows you to watch where you've been, to see the landscape recede into distance and memory. You choose a seat by the window, on the side facing away from the platform, where the view will open onto the countryside as the train moves through the night. It's a window seat in the middle section of the carriage, far enough from the ends to feel secure and enclosed, but not so far that you feel isolated. The seat itself looks perfect, the cushions plump and inviting, a slight depression in the seat proper showing where previous passengers have sat, making it clear that this is a place where one can truly settle. You lower yourself into it, and the seat receives you with perfect softness. The cushion yields beneath your weight, conforming to the shape of your body, supporting you exactly as you need to be supported. The back of the seat cradles your spine, taking the weight of your upper body so your muscles can release their hold. The armrests are at exactly the right height, padded and covered in the same soft fabric, slightly worn in a way that speaks of comfort rather than neglect. You could sit here for hours. You will sit here for hours, and you know already that you won't grow stiff or sore, that the seat has been designed by people who understood what passengers need on a long nighttime journey. Perhaps they rode in trains themselves, these designers, spending hours testing different cushions, different angles, different degrees of support. Or perhaps they simply had that rare gift of empathy that allows someone to imagine what another person needs, to create comfort for strangers they'll never meet. Whatever the process, the result is clear. This is a seat made for rest, for the long hours of travel, for the gradual dissolution of tension and the gentle slide towards sleep that such journeys can provide when everything is arranged just right. You could sit here for hours. You will sit here for hours, and you know already that you won't grow stiff or sore, that the seat has been designed by people who understood what passengers need on a long nighttime journey. You adjust your position slightly, finding the perfect angle, and then allow your body to settle fully into the support beneath and around you. Your shoulders drop. The muscles in your neck ease their hold. Your jaw unclenches without you consciously telling it to. Your breathing deepens, slows, becomes more regular. Already, just from sitting down, from being held and supported, your body is beginning to release its tension, to let go of the day's accumulated stress and tightness. Outside your window, rain continues to fall, visible in the glow of the platform lamps as fine, slanting lines of silver, like threads being drawn through the darkness. Individual drops trace wandering paths down the glass, catching the light as they go, merging with other drops when their paths cross, creating ever-changing patterns that your eyes can follow without effort or thought. Watch one drop as it appears near the top of the window, grows heavy with accumulated moisture, begins its descent. It runs straight for a moment, then curves to the left, then right, following some invisible pattern created by the texture of the glass, by microscopic irregularities in the surface. It merges with another drop, becomes larger, heavier, runs faster. Near the bottom of the window it pauses, caught in some slight depression, accumulating more water until finally it's heavy enough to overcome whatever was holding it, and it slides the last few inches to the window frame and disappears. There's something deeply peaceful about watching rain on glass. It requires no analysis, no interpretation, no response. It simply is, water following gravity, moved by forces beyond anyone's control, creating beauty without intention or awareness. You could watch it for hours and never see the same pattern twice, and never grow bored, because your mind doesn't have to work to appreciate it. It's just there, happening, while you rest and watch and allow yourself to simply be. The carriage is warm, but not too warm, just right for comfort, just right for the gradual, gentle relaxation that's already spreading through your limbs like honey, like warm water, like the loosening of bonds you didn't realize were holding you. The air carries that faint scent of lemon oil used to polish the wood, of old fabric and wool, and somewhere, barely perceptible, the clean smell of the rain outside mixing with the warm air inside. Other passengers have found their seats as well, settling in with the same quiet contentment you feel. The carriage isn't full, perhaps a dozen people scattered throughout, each one claiming their own small space, their own territory of comfort. There's an elderly gentleman across the aisle and one row back, arranging a blanket over his knees with slow, careful movements, spreading it just so, smoothing out the wrinkles, taking his time. He's wearing a grey cardigan over a white shirt, reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck. His face is calm, weathered, peaceful, the face of someone who has made this journey many times before, who knows exactly what to expect, who finds comfort in the familiar routine. Further down the carriage, a woman in a soft grey shawl tucks a small bag beneath her seat and turns to look out her own window. Her hair is pulled back loosely, and she touches it unconsciously, a small gesture of self-comfort. She settles into her seat with a small sigh, not of distress but of relief, of arrival, of finally being able to rest. For a moment her eyes meet yours, and she offers a small smile, a nod of recognition. Fellow travelers, sharing this peaceful space, understanding without words that this is a time for quiet, for rest, for the gentle journey ahead. No one speaks. The silence is comfortable, shared, full of mutual understanding that this is a time for peace, not conversation. What could be said, anyway, that would improve on the quiet? What words could add to the comfort of being here, sheltered and warm, about to be carried through the night toward rest? The train rocks ever so slightly, just the smallest movement, a gentle breathing, the slight shifts that come from being a massive structure resting on springs and suspension. You can feel it through your seat, a subtle shifting that's deeply soothing, like being rocked in the arms of someone strong and gentle who means you no harm, who wants only for you to rest, to let go, to trust that you're held safely. Your hands rest on the armrests, and you notice they're covered in the same soft fabric as the seats, slightly worn smooth in places where countless other hands have rested, where the natural oils from skin have worked into the fibers over years, over decades, creating a softness that can only come from long use and good care. Your fingers trace absent patterns on the material, barely moving, not conscious or deliberate, just feeling the texture, the warmth that's building where your hands make contact, the comfort of touching something soft and well made. A gentle sound fills the carriage, not loud, barely audible really, but present if you listen for it. It's the sound of the train at rest, the quiet hiss of steam in pipes, the tick of cooling metal, the barely there hum of some mechanical system doing its job without fanfare or attention. And underneath all that, so subtle you're not sure if you're hearing it or feeling it, the heartbeat of the locomotive, the barely perceptible pulse of power held in check, of energy waiting to be released, of the great machine breathing and living and preparing for the journey ahead. Through the window, beyond the rain-traced glass and the glow of the platform, you can see the dark shapes of the hills, patient and still. The mountains beyond them are invisible in the darkness and rain, but you can sense their presence, feel their weight on the night, know that they're there waiting for the train to come to them, to climb their slopes, to cross their passes, to carry you up into their realm of cold air and stars. The rain continues to fall, softer now, or perhaps you're just becoming accustomed to its sound. It no longer demands attention but instead becomes part of the background, part of the texture of the night, something that simply is without needing to be noted or considered or responded to. Your eyelids feel pleasantly heavy. Not with exhaustion, not with the desperate need for sleep, but with that comfortable drowsiness that comes from being warm and safe and supported after a long day. The kind of heaviness that makes closing your eyes a pleasure rather than a necessity, that makes resting feel like a choice rather than a surrender. You could close your eyes now if you wanted. You could let the sounds and sensations wash over you while you drift. But the train hasn't left yet, and part of you wants to experience the departure, to feel that moment when stillness gives way to motion, when the platform begins to slide away and the journey truly begins. So you keep your eyes open, but just barely, looking out through the rain-traced window at the platform, at the few remaining passengers making their way aboard, at the lamps glowing in the mist, at the patient station building with its warm windows and ticking clock. And then there's a sound, soft, gentle, almost musical. A bell, perhaps, or a quiet whistle from somewhere toward the front of the train. Not loud, not alarming, just a signal, a voice saying, "We're ready now." Everyone is aboard who needs to be. The night is waiting. It's time to begin. You feel it before you see it, a subtle change in the quality of the vibration coming through your seat, a slight increase in the intensity of that barely felt pulse. The train is gathering itself, preparing to move, calling on its reserves of power in preparation for the moment of departure. And then, so smoothly you almost don't notice at first, barely more than a whisper of change, the train begins to move. The motion begins as barely a whisper of movement, a slight tension in the air, a subtle gathering of energy, a settling of weight onto the rails, and then the gentlest forward glide imaginable. It's remarkable, really, how smoothly such a massive object can begin to move. There's no jerk, no lurch, no sudden acceleration that throws you back in your seat. Just a barely perceptible transition from stillness to motion, as if the train were always meant to be moving and being still was the temporary state, the brief pause between journeys. The engineering that allows this, the careful balancing of power and weight, the precise control of steam and pressure, the knowledge of exactly how much force to apply and when, is invisible, working behind the scenes, asking for no appreciation or acknowledgement. It simply works, perfectly, as it has worked for decades. The platform begins to slip past your window, the lamps passing one by one, each pool of amber light giving way to the next in a slow, steady rhythm. The speed is barely more than walking pace at first, perhaps even slower, and you can see every detail of the station drifting by. A wooden bench, dark with rain, its slats gleaming with moisture. An iron fence painted green, decorative scrollwork at the tops of the posts. A climbing rose, leafless now in the late season, clinging to a trellis with determined, thorny stems. A rain barrel beneath a drain pipe, its surface stippled with falling drops, creating endless concentric circles that spread and merge and disappear. There's a porter standing near the edge of the platform, holding a lantern that swings slightly in his hand. He's wearing a uniform of dark blue with brass buttons, a cap pulled low over his eyes. As the train passes him, he raises one hand in a slow, peaceful gesture of farewell. His face is barely visible in the shadow beneath his cap, but you can sense his expression, calm, unhurried, having seen countless trains depart on countless nights, finding something peaceful in the routine, in the reliability, in the simple fact of trains leaving and arriving and leaving again, the pulse of travel that continues regardless of what else might be happening in the world. The station master stands beneath the shelter of the platform roof, a dark figure in a heavy coat, his breath visible in the cold air. He too raises a hand as the train glides past, and you can see him watching, making sure everything is as it should be, that the departure is smooth and safe, that all is well with this train on this night. Then he's behind you, left in that pool of warm light, growing smaller and smaller until he's just a memory, a dark shape in the distance, and then just an impression of where he stood, and then nothing at all, left behind in the leaving. The last lamp passes. The platform ends, marked by a simple sign that flicks by too quickly to read. And the train slides out into the open night. The change is subtle but profound. Suddenly there are no more buildings, no more man-made light except what spills from the train itself. The darkness opens up on both sides, vast and deep, and the landscape begins to reveal itself in hints and suggestions rather than clear views. It's a different kind of seeing, this night vision, less about detail and more about shape, about the feeling of space, about sensing what's there rather than observing it directly. The railway follows a gentle grade downward, curving slightly to the left, and through your window you can see the lights of the train itself reflected on wet grass, on standing puddles, on the leaves of low bushes that crowd close to the tracks. The reflections are beautiful, long streaks of gold and amber that slide across dark water, that illuminate the undersides of leaves, that create a moving bubble of light around the train as it travels through the darkness. Outside that bubble, the night is complete, mysterious, full of unseen presences. The land, the weather, the slow breathing of the earth itself. The rain continues, soft and steady, drumming so gently on the carriage roof that it becomes part of the background of sound, mixing with the click and rhythm of the wheels, creating a lullaby of natural music. Each drop that hits the roof makes a tiny sound, and thousands of drops falling together create a soft percussion, a white noise that soothes rather than disturbs, that helps your mind let go of individual thoughts and drift instead toward a more peaceful, unfocused state. The motion is hypnotic. The train rocks slightly from side to side, not much, just enough to feel like breathing, like the gentle sway of branches in a mild wind, like the cradle rocking that has soothed human beings to sleep since the beginning of time. Some deep, ancient part of your brain recognizes this motion and responds to it, sending signals that it's safe to rest, that you're being carried, that you don't need to maintain vigilance or alertness. The wheels find their rhythm on the rails, clickety-click, clickety-click, a pattern that repeats endlessly but never feels monotonous, because each repetition is slightly different, inflected with tiny variations that keep your mind from fixing on it, allowing it instead to wash over and through you like waves on a shore, like wind in trees, like any of the eternal rhythms of nature that don't demand attention but simply provide a background of sound and sensation against which you can rest. The speed increases, but only to a comfortable pace, no rush, no urgency, just a steady, purposeful movement through the night, eating up the miles with patient consistency, neither slow enough to be frustrating nor fast enough to feel hurried. It's exactly right, this speed, perfectly calibrated for a nighttime journey when the destination is less important than the traveling itself, when the point is not to arrive but to move, to be carried, to experience the gentle transition from one place to another. The landscape flows past, and you begin to see shapes in the darkness, the rounded forms of hills, soft curves against the slightly lighter sky, the spiky silhouettes of bare trees, their branches reaching up like fingers or like veins or like the capillaries in a lung, organic patterns that your eye finds beautiful even without being able to see them clearly. The occasional glint of water in a ditch or stream, catching light from the train and throwing it back for just a moment before the darkness reclaims it. Inside the carriage, the warm light holds steady, creating a bubble of safety and comfort that moves through the night like a small world unto itself. The contrast between the darkness outside and the gentle illumination within makes the space feel even cozier, even more like a refuge, even more like home. You're aware of the other passengers in their seats, the soft sound of someone shifting position, the quiet rustle of fabric as someone adjusts a blanket, a contented sigh, the whisper of pages turning as someone reads by lamplight. But everyone remains peacefully silent, respecting the shared quiet, understanding that words are not needed, that the journey itself is the communication, the shared experience that binds you all together in this moment. The rain on the window creates patterns that change with the speed of the train. Individual drops no longer trace slow paths down the glass. Instead, they streak horizontally, pulled by the wind of the train's passage, creating lines and whirls that blur and merge, making the view outside soften and abstract, like looking through falling water, like seeing the world through a veil. It's beautiful, this distortion, this transformation of reality into something more dreamlike, more peaceful, less demanding of interpretation or analysis. Beyond that veil of rain and streaked glass, the night deepens. The last hints of human habitation fall away. No more distant farmhouse lights, no more roads running parallel to the tracks, no more fences or gates or any sign that people have passed this way. The train has entered wilder country now, following its iron path through landscape that belongs to the night, to the rain, to silence and solitude and the slow processes of nature that continue regardless of human presence or absence. And yet you feel no loneliness, no unease, no sense of vulnerability or danger. The motion of the train is a constant reassurance. The rhythm says, "You're safe, you're carried, you're held." The warmth says, "You're sheltered, you're comfortable, you're home." The gentle rocking says, "Rest now, let go, allow yourself to drift." Everything about the experience encourages surrender, not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of giving over, of trusting, of allowing yourself to be taken care of by the train, by the rails, by the skilled hands of the engineer somewhere far ahead in the locomotive, guiding this massive machine through the darkness with practiced ease. Your breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the train, though you didn't consciously decide to do this. It just happened, naturally, your body synchronizing itself with a larger pattern, finding harmony with the motion and the sound. In, and the wheels say clickety. Out, and they say click. In again, and clickety. Out, and click. Over and over, breath and wheels and rain all moving together in a symphony of peaceful repetition. Your heartbeat has found an echo in the distant pulse of the engine. You can feel it if you pay attention, a deep thrumming that travels through the entire structure of the train, a reminder that this is a living thing in its way, powered by fire and water and pressure, by the controlled explosion of steam driving pistons and turning wheels, by heat and force turned to purposeful motion through human ingenuity and mechanical precision. Your muscles have released their tension, one by one, without you having to consciously relax them. Your shoulders have dropped from wherever they were carrying tension up near your ears. Your jaw has unclenched, your teeth no longer pressed together. Your hands have softened on the armrests, the fingers loose and curved rather than gripped tight. Your legs have settled into the seat, the muscles no longer engaged, just resting, being supported by the cushion beneath them. Even your face has relaxed, the small muscles around your eyes and mouth easing their hold, smoothing out whatever expression you might have been unconsciously holding. The seat holds you perfectly, and you sink a little deeper into its embrace, feeling the support beneath you, the softness around you, the warmth that's building where your body makes contact with the fabric. It's like being held, truly held, not in a way that constrains or confines, but in a way that supports and comforts, that takes the weight of being and carries it for you so you don't have to work so hard, so you can simply be. Through the window, shapes of deeper darkness begin to rise on both sides of the tracks. At first they're vague, indefinite, but as your eyes adjust and as the train's lights illuminate them, they become more distinct. Trees. Many trees. The train is entering a forest. The change is gradual, as all good changes are on this journey. No sudden transitions, no jarring shifts, just a slow gathering of presence, a gentle thickening of the darkness, a multiplication of vertical forms until suddenly they're everywhere. An endless congregation of trunks and branches rising into the rain-filled night, welcoming the train into their realm, offering their own particular form of shelter and peace. The forest appears gradually, not with any sudden transition, but with a slow gathering of presence. First, there are individual trees standing alone or in small groups beside the tracks. Tall shapes darker than the night sky, their bare branches reaching upward like fingers. Then the trees become more numerous, drawing closer together, and then suddenly they're everywhere, an endless congregation of trunks and branches rising into the rain-filled darkness on both sides of the railway. These are old trees. You can sense it even in the limited light. Pines, mostly, with thick trunks and branches that begin high up, creating a canopy somewhere above that you can't quite see but can feel, a ceiling of interwoven boughs that catches much of the rain before it reaches the ground, so that what falls here comes down in larger, irregular drops that tap against the carriage roof with a different, deeper sound. The train's lights illuminate the nearest trees, catching the texture of bark, rough and deeply furrowed on the pines, smoother on the occasional birch whose white trunk appears like a ghost among the darker shapes. Rain glistens on every surface, and where the light catches droplets clinging to pine needles, they sparkle like tiny stars, like diamonds scattered carelessly through the branches. The smell of the forest penetrates even into the sealed warmth of the carriage, that rich, complex scent of pine resin and damp earth, of moss and bark and the sweet decay of fallen needles composting on the forest floor. It's a smell that speaks of life and growth, of the slow, patient processes of nature, of time measured in seasons rather than hours. The train moves through this world of trees with steady confidence, following its path through the wilderness as it has done for years, for decades perhaps. The tracks curve gently left, then right, following the natural contours of the land, rising and falling in long, easy grades that you feel more than see. A slight increase in the angle of the floor beneath your feet, a subtle change in the pitch of the engine's voice. Between the trees, when you look carefully, you can catch glimpses of the deeper forest, layers of darkness receding into the distance, trunks standing like pillars in a vast cathedral, spaces between them filled with shadow and mist and the soft, living presence of ancient growth. Sometimes the wind moves through the forest. You can tell by the way the upper branches sway, dark movement against dark sky. But here, at ground level, in the shelter of so many trees, the air is still, holding its moisture close. Fog has begun to gather in the low places. You see it pooling in hollows beside the tracks, lying in streambed and dell, white and luminous where the train's lights touch it, mysterious and deep where the light fades. The fog softens everything, blurs every edge, makes the forest even more dreamlike, even more removed from the ordinary world. The rhythm of the train continues its lullaby. Click, 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 click. So steady, so reliable, so peaceful. The sound fills your ears and your mind, leaving no room for worry or thought. Just this simple, repeating pattern that asks nothing of you except that you listen, that you allow it to carry you. Your eyelids have grown heavy. The warmth of the carriage, the gentle rocking, the soft light, the rain, the rhythm, all of it combines to create a weight behind your eyes, a pleasant, drowsy weight that makes blinking slow and closing your eyes a relief, a small surrender to comfort. When you open your eyes again, how long has it been? A moment? Several minutes. The forest is still there, still passing in its slow procession of trunks and branches and shadow. The rain continues. The train rocks gently. Nothing has changed, and yet everything feels deeper, softer, further removed from the world of waking concerns. A clearing opens beside the tracks, a small meadow where grass grows thick, now beaten down by rain, silver grey in the darkness. At the far edge, barely visible, stands a small structure, perhaps a shelter for forest workers, or an old hunter's cabin, or just a shed for storing equipment. A single window shows no light. The building sits alone in the darkness, patient and silent, keeping its own counsel, and then the trees swallow it up and it's gone as if it never existed. The forest goes on and on. There's no sense of hurry in its presence, no urgency. These trees have stood for lifetimes, will stand for lifetimes more. The train passes through on its nightly journey, a brief visitor, welcome but unimportant in the larger scheme of the forest's life. And you, carried in your warm seat, are even more transient, even more like a dream passing through this ancient place. But it doesn't matter. In this moment, in this soft, rocking cocoon of warmth and light, you don't need to be anything more than you are. A traveler, resting, being carried, breathing slowly in and out in rhythm with the rain and the rails and the endless patience of the trees. The forest begins to thin gradually. The trees become less densely packed, and between them you catch glimpses of something else, the gleam of water, dark and smooth. The train is approaching a river. The forest releases its hold slowly, the trees stepping back from the tracks in gradual retreat, and the space that opens up is filled with the presence of water. It's a wide river, dark and deep, its surface smooth as polished stone. The rain dimples it with tiny impacts, each drop creating a small ring that spreads outward and merges with countless others, creating a constantly shifting texture of overlapping circles and patterns. In the glow from the train's lights, the water looks almost black, but where the light touches it directly, it shows hints of deep gray and midnight blue, colors that suggest depth, mystery, the slow, powerful current that moves beneath the surface. The railway runs along the riverbank for a while before crossing it, giving you time to take in the breadth of the water, the way it curves away both upstream and downstream, disappearing into the rainy darkness. On the far bank, dark hills rise, their slopes covered in more forest, the trees just black silhouettes against a sky that's fractionally lighter than the land. The sound of the train changes as it moves beside the river. The forest had created a kind of enclosure, holding the sound close. Now, with open water on one side and the hills set back, the sound spreads out, becomes fuller, more resonant. You can hear the rain hitting the river's surface, a soft hissing that underlies everything, and beneath that, if you listen very carefully, the slight murmur of current moving over stones somewhere out in the darkness. And then the train begins to cross. The bridge announces itself first with a change in the sound beneath the wheels, the hollow ring of metal rails laid on a steel structure rather than wooden ties on earth. The rhythm changes slightly, becomes more distinct, more percussive. Through your window, you can see the bridge's structure passing, dark girders and supports, cables and beams, all of it rain-soaked and gleaming dully in the light from the train. And below, the river. Looking down, and the angle is perfect, the window positioned just right, you can see the water passing beneath the bridge. The train's lights reflect on the surface, creating pools and streaks of gold that slide across the dark water, and in those reflections you can see the ripples and eddies, the way the current swirls around the bridge's supports, the patterns of flow and resistance. The crossing takes time, and that's exactly right. Everything about this journey takes time, moves at its own pace, refuses to be hurried. The bridge must be several hundred feet long at least, perhaps more. It's hard to judge distances in the darkness, hard to know where the banks truly are when everything beyond the train's immediate reach dissolves into shadow and suggestion. The structure of the bridge itself is a marvel of engineering, even if you can only see glimpses of it. The main supports must be massive. You can sense their solidity, their strength, even if you can't see them clearly. They rise from the river below, anchored deep in bedrock or sunk into the riverbed itself, holding steady against the constant push of current, against the occasional flooding, against the weight of countless trains passing overhead year after year. Between the main supports, a lattice of smaller beams creates patterns of shadow and light as the train passes. Cross-bracing, support struts, reinforcement, all of it designed by someone who understood forces and stresses, who calculated weights and tensions, who made sure that this bridge would carry trains safely across this river for decades, for generations. The sound of the crossing fills the carriage, that hollow ring of wheels on rails laid across open space, a deeper resonance than you get from track on solid ground. It's almost musical, this sound, each will contributing its own note as it passes over each rail joint, creating rhythms within rhythms, patterns within patterns. You could listen to it for hours and never grow tired of the complexity, the way it changes and shifts while remaining fundamentally the same. The crossing takes time. The bridge must be several hundred feet long at least, spanning not just the main channel but the marshy ground on either side where the river spreads during flood times. The train moves at the same steady pace, unhurried, the bridge humming softly beneath the weight and movement. There's something deeply peaceful about being suspended over water like this, held up by engineering and iron, trusting in the strength of the structure, in the skill of those who built it long ago. Halfway across, you notice something. The rain has lessened slightly. It's still falling, but more gently now, the drops smaller, the sound on the roof softer. The clouds above must be thinning, because the sky seems fractionally lighter, and when you look up, you can almost perceive the suggestion of clouds moving, dark shapes against darkness, flowing slowly in winds high above. The far bank approaches. The bridge ends with another slight change in the sound and feel of the rails, and the train is back on solid ground, running now between the river on the left and steep hillside on the right. But the water doesn't leave. The river accompanies the train, sometimes close beside the tracks, sometimes receding but always present, a companion in the darkness. Other waterways join it, small creeks tumbling down from the hills, their voices adding to the liquid conversation, the eternal dialogue of water finding its way downward, following gravity toward the sea. At one point, you pass a small waterfall where a stream cascades over rocks beside the tracks. The train's lights catch the falling water, turning it white and sparkling for just a moment before the darkness claims it again. The sound of it, that rush and tumble, reaches you even through the closed windows, a brief crescendo in the night's quiet symphony. The carriage rocks gently as the train navigates a curve, and you sway with it, your body relaxed enough to move as it wants, no resistance, no tension. The motion is pleasant, comforting, like being rocked in a cradle, like being carried in gentle arms. Your reflection appears and disappears in the window glass, superimposed over the darkness outside, a ghost of yourself, translucent, merging with the night and the rain and the passing landscape. Sometimes you can see your own eyes looking back at you, dark and calm. Sometimes you disappear entirely when the darkness outside is deep enough. The river begins to narrow, the valley tightening around it. The hills draw closer on both sides, becoming steeper, more imposing. The train is climbing now. You can feel the slight strain in the engine's voice, the fractional change in the angle of the floor. You're heading into the mountains, into higher country, toward the places where the rivers are born. More bridges come, smaller ones, crossing tributaries and gorges, each one announced by that hollow ring beneath the wheels, that brief moment of suspension over dark water or darker air. The train crosses them all with the same steady confidence, and each crossing becomes a small meditation, a moment to appreciate the engineering, the daring, the simple fact of connection between one side and the other. Between bridges, the train runs on narrow ledges carved into the hillsides, with the river far below on one side and rock rising steeply on the other. These sections feel especially secure, especially safe, the train held between the elements, protected, on its predetermined path, unable to stray, committed to its course. Gradually, the river begins to fall behind and below. The train has been climbing steadily, and now the water is a distant presence, its voice faint, its gleam occasional in the depths of the valley. The rails curve away from the water's course, seeking an easier grade, winding up into the higher reaches of the mountains. And as the elevation increases, the character of the night begins to change. The air feels thinner, colder, cleaner. The mist grows thicker, not flowing but hanging in place, creating walls of white that the train passes through like a ship through clouds. Ahead, somewhere in the darkness and mist, lights appear, small, warm, steady. The lights of human habitation. The train is approaching its first mountain town. The town appears like a constellation of earthbound stars. First just a few lights scattered on the hillside, windows glowing amber and gold, spilling their warmth into the rainy night. Then more lights, street lamps casting pools of illumination on wet cobblestones, the soft glow from a church window, the warmer yellow of a fireplace visible through parted curtains. The lights multiply and gather, drawing together into the cluster of a small settlement, a human presence nestled in the folds of the mountains. The train begins to slow, its speed decreasing so gradually that you barely notice at first. The rhythm of the wheels changes, becomes more measured, more deliberate. Buildings appear beside the tracks, first a few scattered structures, then more closely spaced, and finally the organized pattern of a village. These are old stone buildings, their walls thick and solid, built to withstand mountain weather. Steep roofs shed the rain, dark tile or slate gleaming with moisture. Shutters frame the windows, some closed, some open to show curtains drawn against the night. Every building looks settled, established, as if it has grown from the ground rather than being placed upon it. The train glides through the outskirts of the town, passing a small church with a square tower, its clock face dimly illuminated, showing an hour well past midnight. A narrow street runs parallel to the tracks, empty now, its cobblestones polished by rain, reflecting the few street lamps in wavering, watery images. A cat crosses the street with unhurried grace, pausing to shake one paw before disappearing into the shadows beneath a covered arcade. There are signs of life, but quiet life, the life of a place settling into sleep. A light burns in an upstairs window, someone reading late, perhaps, or tending to a restless child, or simply sitting awake in the peaceful hours. A wisp of smoke rises from a chimney, visible against the lighter darkness of the clouds, quickly dispersed by the rain. The train pulls into a tiny station, barely more than a platform with a small shelter, a single lamppost, and a wooden sign whose name you can't quite make out in the darkness. The train stops, or nearly stops, pausing just long enough for the door of one carriage to open and an elderly passenger to descend, moving carefully, a bag in hand. The platform is empty except for this one person, who walks slowly toward the shelter without looking back at the train. A life being lived, a journey ending, a homecoming in the deep night. The door closes softly. The train begins to move again, sliding away from the platform, leaving the town behind with the same gentle motion it brought to the arrival. Within moments, the lights begin to fade, dropping behind and below as the train climbs away on a rising grade. But before the town is entirely gone, you catch one last glimpse, a baker's window, lit from within, where a figure in white moves back and forth, beginning the night's work of preparing bread for the morning. The sight is there and then gone, a brief vision of industry and comfort, of the ordinary magic of human routine. The darkness closes in again, the mist thickens, and the train is alone once more with the night and the mountains and the rain. But not for long. The mountains are settled with scattered communities, each one holding its own against the weather and the altitude, each one a small beacon of warmth and life. The train visits them all on its nightly journey, threading its way through the high country, connecting these isolated places to each other and to the wider world below. Another town appears, this one larger, spread across both sides of a narrow valley. The train passes through its center, right down the main street it seems, though of course there are barriers and crossings to keep the railway separate from the road. More lights here, more windows, more evidence of human presence. A cafe with its chairs stacked on tables inside, visible through steamed windows. A hotel with a sign swinging gently in the wind, its lobby lit but empty. A fountain in a small square, its water still flowing despite the late hour, the sound of it just audible over the rain and the train. The station here is larger too, a proper building with a waiting room and a ticket window, though both are dark now, closed for the night. The platform is longer, with benches protected by a wooden overhang. But again, no one waits. The train pauses, the doors open to the empty platform, wait a respectful moment, then close again. The town receives this visit and releases the train without ceremony, without fuss. As the train departs, you see a figure standing in a doorway, a woman in a thick sweater, arms crossed, watching the train pass. She doesn't wave, just watches, her face calm in the glow of the doorway light. Perhaps she does this every night, marking the train's passage, finding comfort in its regularity, its reliability. Perhaps she has someone on board, traveling far away, and she likes to imagine them safe and warm in a carriage just like this one. Then she too is gone, swallowed by distance and darkness, and the train is climbing again, winding higher into the mountains. The towns come at irregular intervals, each one different in size and character but all sharing that same quality of settled peace, of life lived at a slower pace, of communities that have made their accommodation with the mountains and the weather and the isolation. Some are just a handful of houses clustered around a crossroads. Others spread along valley floors, their fields and gardens now dark and dormant but suggesting summer's plenty. Through one town, the train passes so close to houses that you can see into lit windows, a kitchen where dishes sit drying beside a sink, a living room where a fire burns low in a grate, a hallway where a clock ticks on the wall, its pendulum swinging steadily. These glimpses into other lives come and go in seconds. Each one a tiny story you'll never know completely. Each one a reminder that the world is full of quiet moments, peaceful rooms, lives being lived in simple contentment. The last town before the high pass is the smallest. Just a cluster of buildings around a crossroads, a church, a general store, a few houses. But it sits in a particularly beautiful spot, on a slight rise that overlooks a wide valley. As the train climbs past it and you look back, you can see the whole settlement laid out below, its few lights making a warm pattern against the dark land, smoke rising from chimneys, the church tower standing a little taller than the other buildings, pointing upward toward the rain-heavy clouds. And then it's gone, the last town, left behind in the darkness below. The train has entered the uninhabited heights now, the realm of rock and wind and weather, where only the railway ventures, drawing its line of connection across otherwise trackless wilderness. The engine works harder here, laboring steadily against the gradient. You can hear the increased effort in its breathing, feel it in the slightly slower pace. But there's no strain, no struggle, just patient, powerful work, the application of steady force against the pull of gravity. The mist becomes fog, thick and white, pressing close against the windows, reducing the world to just the immediate surroundings. The rails ahead disappearing into whiteness after a few dozen yards, the rocky wall on one side, the void on the other. The fog mutes all sound, makes the train feel even more isolated, even more like a small world unto itself. Inside the carriage, the warmth and light feel especially precious now. The contrast with the cold, fog-wrapped darkness outside makes the interior seem even cozier, even more like a refuge. You're aware of the other passengers, each one a fellow traveler in this small, moving sanctuary, each one trusting in the train to carry them safely through the night. Your eyes are so heavy now. The motion, the warmth, the late hour, the gentle sounds, all of it pulls you towards sleep. You let your head rest against the window, feeling the faint vibration of the train through the glass, cool against your forehead, pleasant rather than uncomfortable. The fog flows past outside, white and formless, hypnotic in its featurelessness. You watch it without really watching, your eyes open but not quite seeing, your mind drifting somewhere between waking and sleep, held in that peaceful in-between state where thoughts become fragmentary and strange, where the boundaries between inside and outside, between self and train and night, begin to blur and soften. Somewhere ahead, through the fog and darkness, a light glows warmly. It takes you a moment to understand what you're seeing, to bring your mind back to focus enough to recognize it. It's the T car, the lounge, lit and welcoming, waiting just a few carriages ahead. Perhaps it's time to stand, to stretch, to walk slowly through the train and see what comfort might be found there. The pattern repeats with comforting regularity as the train makes its way through the mountain country. Every so often, lights appear in the darkness, sometimes just a few, sometimes many, and the train slows its pace, approaching another small settlement carved out of the wilderness, another human foothold in these ancient hills. Each town has its own character, its own particular arrangement of buildings and streets, but they all share something essential. A quality of peace, of life lived at a slower pace, of communities that have found a way to exist in harmony with the demanding landscape around them. You pass through a town built on both sides of a narrow gorge, the buildings clinging to steep slopes, connected by a bridge that arches high above a rushing stream. The train crosses on its own bridge, parallel to the footbridge, and for a moment you can see down into the gorge. Not far, the darkness is too deep, but enough to sense the depth, the drop, the power of water that has been cutting through stone for thousands of years. Houses perch on the slopes like mountain goats, their foundations built up with stone, their walls thick against winter cold, their windows glowing warmly in the night. Another town sits in a wide valley, spread out comfortably with room to breathe. Here there are gardens, even in late autumn. You can see the ordered rows of what must be vegetable plots, the trellises and frames that supported summer's growth, now empty but promising future abundance. A greenhouse stands beside one house, its glass panels catching and reflecting the train's lights, multiplying them, creating a momentary constellation of golden points. Someone is inside. You catch a glimpse of movement, a figure tending plants even at this late hour, finding peace perhaps in the work, in the quiet growing things, in the warm, humid air so different from the cold rain outside. The train passes a church where candlelight shows through stained glass windows. Just a few candles, left burning through the night perhaps, or lit by someone keeping vigil, or simply maintained as a tradition, a small light in the darkness saying, "Here is sanctuary, here is peace, here is a place set aside from the ordinary concerns of the world." The windows are simple, not elaborate like city cathedrals, but beautiful in their simplicity. Geometric patterns in blue and red and gold that glow like jewels in the candlelight. At the edge of one town, you pass what must be a small inn, a larger building than the houses, with a hanging sign that swings gently in the wind, though you can't make out what it says. Lights burn in several windows, and through one you can see a dining room with wooden tables and chairs, a fire burning in a large stone fireplace. The room is empty now at this late hour, but you can imagine it during the day. Travelers stopping for a meal, locals gathering for conversation, the warmth and good smells and companionship that such places offer. Another town, smaller than most, consists of barely a dozen buildings clustered around a crossroads. But even here, even in this tiny settlement, there's a sense of community, of people looking after one another. The houses are close together, sharing walls in some cases, creating a fortress of human presence against the wilderness. Wood piles are stacked against walls, covered with tarps against the rain. Smoke rises from multiple chimneys, everyone keeping their fires going, ensuring warmth through the night. A dog appears in the street, looking up at the passing train with mild interest before trotting away on some business of its own. The train doesn't stop at all of these places, only at the larger towns with proper stations. But it passes through all of them, connecting them even if only by its presence, by the regular passage of this nightly train that says, "You're not forgotten, you're not isolated, you're part of a larger network of places and people and connections that span these mountains." You watch as the lights of yet another town appear, grow closer, pass by, and fade behind. Each one is a small story, a collection of lives being lived, of people sleeping in their beds or sitting by their fires or lying awake thinking their own thoughts. You'll never know their stories, never meet these people, never learn the details of their lives. But for this moment, passing through in your warm carriage, you're connected to them, sharing the night, existing in the same landscape, under the same sky, breathing the same rain-washed air. The spaces between towns grow longer as the train climbs higher. The settlements become fewer, smaller, more isolated. The land becomes steeper, rockier, less hospitable to human habitation. The trees thin out as the altitude increases, giving way to hardy shrubs and then just grass and rock and, in the highest places, snow that glows palely in what little light reaches it. The last town before the truly high country is the smallest you've seen, just a handful of buildings huddled together as if for mutual warmth and protection. It sits at the junction of two valleys, right where they meet, creating a small flat area that allowed just enough space for these few structures. The train slows as it passes, and you can see more detail than usual. A general store with supplies visible through the window, lanterns, rope, tools, bags of flour and sugar stacked neatly. A small house with smoke rising from its chimney and curtains drawn across the windows, a warm orange glow showing around the edges. A barn or storage building with a steeply pitched roof to shed snow, and a tiny church, barely more than a chapel, its steeple pointing up toward the hidden stars. Someone stands in the doorway of one of the houses, just a silhouette, backlit by the light from inside, watching the train pass. You can't see their face, can't tell if they're young or old, man or woman, but you can sense their presence, their attention. They stand there motionless, watching, and you watch back, and for a moment you're connected across the distance, two people acknowledging each other in the night. Then the train carries you past, and they're gone, absorbed back into their life as you continue in yours. The buildings fall behind. The last light fades into the distance, and the train enters the realm of rock and ice and wind, where only the railway ventures, where human presence is temporary and fleeting, where the mountains rule utterly and absolutely. You rise slowly from your seat, your muscles stiff from sitting, your body heavy with the relaxation that has settled deep into your bones. The carriage sways gently as you stand, and you place one hand on the seat back to steady yourself, feeling the soft fabric under your palm. The aisle is narrow, carpeted, hushed. You move slowly down it, passing the other passengers, most with their eyes closed now, some with blankets drawn up over their shoulders, everyone deep in their own rest or drifting toward it. The gentleman across from your seat has his head tilted back, mouth slightly open, breathing deeply and peacefully. The woman in the grey shawl has curled onto her side, her hand tucked beneath her cheek like a child. At the end of the carriage, a door leads to the space between cars, a small platform exposed to the night. You pause there for just a moment, feeling the cold air on your face, hearing the full voice of the train unfiltered by windows or walls, the roar of the wheels, the clank of couplings, the rush of wind. It's bracing, this moment of connection with the raw movement and power, but you don't stay long. The cold penetrates quickly, and the warmth ahead beckons. The next carriage is the T car, and opening its door is like stepping into a different world. The space is smaller than the regular carriages, more intimate, designed for gathering rather than traveling. Small tables occupy the center of the car, each one covered with a cloth of deep green or burgundy, and around them are comfortable chairs and small sofas upholstered in warm, welcoming fabrics. The lighting here is even softer than in the passenger carriages. Wall sconces with amber glass, a few small lamps on the tables themselves, their shades made of colored silk that glows rose and gold. At one end of the car is a small counter, polished wood with brass fittings, and behind it, shelves holding cups and saucers, pots and containers, all arranged with neat precision. A large silver samovar stands on the counter, its sides gleaming, a small wisp of steam rising from its spout. The scent that fills the air is wonderful. Tea, yes, but also honey and lemon, cinnamon and clove, and underneath it all, the rich smell of chocolate. A few passengers occupy the space, but it's not crowded. Two people sit at one table, cradling cups in their hands, speaking in voices so low they're barely audible over the sound of the train. An elderly man sits alone at another table, reading a book by the light of a small lamp, a pot of tea steaming gently at his elbow. In one corner, someone has fallen asleep in a deep armchair, covered with a blanket provided by the car's attendant. The attendant himself is a quiet presence behind the counter, an older man with silver hair and kind eyes, wearing a vest of deep blue over a crisp white shirt. He looks up as you enter and offers a small, warm smile, a slight nod of welcome, but doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. His entire demeanor says, "You're welcome here, take your time, find what comfort you need." You approach the counter slowly, drawn by the warmth and the gentle light and the promise of something soothing to drink. The attendant waits patiently, his hands folded on the counter, no hurry in his posture, no impatience. When you're close enough, he gestures to the shelves behind him with one gentle movement, an invitation to choose. The containers are labeled in elegant script: chamomile, peppermint, lavender, rose hip, black tea, green tea, honey spice blend, mountain herbs. There's hot chocolate too, rich and dark, and what looks like warm spiced milk in a smaller pot. You don't need to speak. He understands from your gaze, from the small movement of your hand, what you'd like. He prepares it with slow, careful movements, selecting a cup, warming it first with hot water, discarding that water and adding fresh, choosing the right tea or blend, allowing it to steep for just the proper amount of time. His movements are meditative, practiced, carrying the weight of ritual and care. When he places the cup before you, it's perfect. The liquid is the right temperature, hot enough to warm but not to burn, hot enough that you need to wait a moment before the first sip, but not so hot that waiting becomes frustrating. The color is beautiful. If you've chosen tea, it might be amber gold like honey held up to lamplight, or deep burgundy if you selected rose hip, or pale green if you opted for something more delicate. If you chose chocolate, it's rich brown with a slight sheen on the surface where the cocoa butter catches the light. Steam rises from the surface in lazy curls, carrying scent and warmth, creating small eddies and patterns in the air above the cup. The cup itself is beautiful, fine china, you think, or porcelain, thin enough that the light shows through slightly when you hold it up, but strong and well made. It's patterned with a delicate design of leaves or flowers, something botanical, painted in blues and golds that complement the colors of the carriage. The handle is perfectly shaped, curved to fit your fingers, large enough to hold comfortably without being awkward. The rim is smooth against your lips when you finally take that first sip. And that first sip, it's everything you hoped and more. The liquid touches your lips first, warm and wet, and then flows into your mouth, bringing flavor and warmth and comfort all at once. If it's tea, the flavor unfolds in layers. The initial taste, then deeper notes as it spreads across your tongue, then the subtle aftertaste that lingers after you swallow. Chamomile might bring honey sweetness and a gentle floral note. Peppermint offers a cool clarity even while being hot, a paradox that refreshes and warms simultaneously. Black tea provides that deep, complex flavor of earth and wood and subtle smoke. If it's chocolate, the richness envelops your entire mouth, creamy and luxurious, with notes of vanilla perhaps, or cinnamon, or just the pure, intense flavor of cocoa, dark and comforting and deeply satisfying. The warmth spreads from your throat to your chest, down into your stomach, radiating outward through your limbs like sunlight, like whiskey, like any warming thing but gentler, more nourishing, more about comfort than stimulation. You can feel it settling into your muscles, easing tension you didn't know you were carrying, bringing a deeper level of relaxation that builds on the foundation the train has already established. When he places the cup before you, it's perfect. The liquid is the right temperature, hot enough to warm but not to burn. The color is beautiful, amber gold if you've chosen tea, rich brown if chocolate. Steam rises from the surface in lazy curls, carrying scent and warmth. You take the cup carefully and find a seat at an empty table by the window. The chair receives you softly, and you settle into it with relief, the cup warm between your hands. The first sip is everything you hoped, soothing, flavorful, exactly what your body needed. The warmth spreads from your throat to your chest, down into your stomach, radiating outward through your limbs. You feel it settling into your muscles, easing tension you didn't know you carried, bringing a deeper level of relaxation. Outside the window, the fog continues, white and flowing, but from this warm refuge it looks beautiful rather than cold, mysterious rather than threatening. The train rocks gently, climbing steadily, and you rock with it, the warm cup steady in your hands. Time passes unmeasured. You drink slowly, savoring each sip, in no hurry to finish. The other passengers in the tea car are equally unhurried, the couple still talking in their low voices, the elderly reader turning pages at long intervals, the sleeper breathing deeply in the corner. The attendant moves quietly about his small domain, washing a cup here, refilling the samovar there, straightening a chair, adjusting a lamp. His presence is unobtrusive but comforting, someone watching over the space, ensuring everyone's comfort, keeping the small haven warm and welcoming. When your cup is empty, you sit for a while longer, reluctant to leave this peaceful space. But gradually you become aware that your body wants something more than sitting now, even in this comfortable chair. Your body wants to lie down, to stretch out, to surrender fully to the night and the motion and the deep relaxation that has claimed you. The sleeping car is waiting, just a few carriages ahead. You rise slowly, leaving your cup on the table. The attendant sees you stand and offers another small nod, a quiet farewell, a wish for good rest. You return it with a small smile of gratitude. The walk back through the carriage, out into the cold space between cars, and forward into the next section of the train feels like a journey through layers of warmth and comfort, each one drawing you deeper into the embrace of the night train. And then you're there, the sleeping car, with its narrow corridor and its row of small doors, each one leading to a private berth, a small sanctuary designed for exactly one purpose: rest. Before you enter the sleeping car, you pause for a moment at a window in the corridor, drawn by something in the quality of the darkness outside. The fog has thinned. You can see further now, and what you see takes your breath away. The train has climbed high, higher than you realized. On one side, the mountain rises steeply, its flank covered in snow that glows pale in what little light reaches it from the train. On the other side, the land falls away into emptiness, a vast gulf of darkness where the valley lies, thousands of feet below. And in that valley, far, far below, you can see lights. The towns you passed through earlier are visible now from this great height, tiny clusters of illumination that look like fallen stars, like candles set in the enormous darkness of the mountains. They're so small, so fragile looking from up here, and yet each one represents warmth, shelter, life continuing in its peaceful routines. The sight creates a strange, wonderful feeling, a mixture of awe at the scale and height, and comfort in knowing that those small lights are there, that they'll still be burning tomorrow night and the night after, that they're permanent fixtures in this wild landscape, anchors of human presence in the wilderness. The train continues to climb, winding back and forth across the mountain's face, gaining elevation through a series of long, gradual curves. Sometimes the slope is on the right, sometimes on the left, as the railway switches back on itself, patiently working its way upward. The air up here is different, thinner, cleaner, so cold that you can sense it even through the insulated walls of the carriage. When you stood in the space between cars, it bit at your face and hands, sharp and clear, carrying sense of stone and snow and the vast, clean emptiness of altitude. The sky above is changing, transforming before your eyes in that way that only mountain skies can. The clouds are breaking up, torn apart by winds at high elevation, winds you can't feel down here at train level, protected as you are by the bulk of the land and the railway's sheltered path, but winds that are fierce and constant in the upper atmosphere, powerful enough to shred the cloud cover that has held steady for so long. You can see it happening if you watch carefully. The solid grey of the cloud layer develops cracks, dark lines that appear and widen, revealing hints of what lies beyond. The clouds move past these gaps, flowing like water, like cloth pulled by invisible hands, creating ever-changing patterns of grey and darker grey and, in the gaps, something else entirely. The air at this altitude is noticeably different, even inside the sealed warmth of the carriage. It's cleaner somehow, more pure, as if you've climbed above the layers of air that hold dust and moisture and the countless tiny particles that float in the atmosphere of lower elevations. When you stood briefly in the space between cars earlier, you could feel how it bit at your face and hands, sharp and clear and so cold it almost burned, carrying sense of stone and snow and the vast, clean emptiness of altitude, of places where the air is thin and the sky is close and the earth drops away in tremendous distances. The mountains around you, you can sense them more than see them, enormous presences in the darkness, feel different than the hills and valleys below. These are old mountains, worn smooth by millions of years of weather, their highest peaks rounded rather than sharp, their slopes long and patient. But they're still mountains, still commanding tremendous respect, still capable of creating their own weather, their own rules, their own harsh conditions that test everything that ventures into their realm. The sky above is changing. The clouds are breaking up, torn apart by winds at high elevation, and between the ragged gaps you can see hints of what lies beyond. A deep, dark blue that might almost be called black, but which carries in it the suggestion of infinite depth, of space extending upward forever. And there, yes, a star. Just one at first, appearing in a clear patch between clouds, sharp and bright and steady. Then another, and another, as more gaps open in the cloud cover. The stars at this altitude look different than they do from the lowlands. Brighter, more distinct, like holes punched in the fabric of the night to let through some light from beyond. The train rounds a curve, and suddenly the whole western sky is visible, and it's clearing rapidly, the clouds fleeing before some high wind that doesn't reach down to the train's level. Stars spread across the opening darkness. Dozens, hundreds, more than you can count, creating patterns and paths of light across the night. It's breathtaking, this view. You stand transfixed, your hand on the cold windowpane, your breath misting the glass, watching the heavens reveal themselves above the mountains. The Milky Way becomes visible, that great river of light spanning the sky, made of uncountable distant suns, each one a vast furnace burning in the incomprehensible distances. The train seems to be climbing toward those stars, working its way up to meet them. Of course it's not. The mountains have their limits, and the stars are infinitely beyond. But in this moment it feels possible. It feels as if the rails might continue upward forever, carrying you higher and higher until the air gave out and you found yourself traveling through the dark between worlds. But no. The train is seeking not the stars but the high pass, the gap between peaks that will allow it to cross over into the next valley, to begin the long descent down the other side of the range. And the pass is close now. You can sense it in the way the engine labors, in the steepness of the grade, in the cold that intensifies with every minute of climbing. The snow is thicker here. It covers everything, smoothing out the rough shapes of the land, creating a landscape of gentle curves and soft shadows. In the starlight it glows with a faint luminescence, blue-white and pure, untouched by any foot or wheel except where the railway cuts through it. You see a snow shed, a long wooden structure built over the tracks to protect them from avalanches. The train enters it, and suddenly the stars are gone, replaced by the echo of wheels on rails in an enclosed space, a hollow thunder that speaks of wooden shelter and human ingenuity making a path through impossible places. The shed is long, it must cover several hundred yards of track, and then you're out the other side, back under the stars, still climbing. A sign passes by the window too quickly to read, but you know what it must have said: the elevation, the name of the pass, perhaps a warning about the altitude or the weather. The highest point is near. And then, so gradually you almost don't notice, the grade begins to ease. The strain in the engine's voice lessens. The angle of the floor beneath your feet shifts, just fractionally. You're not climbing anymore. You've reached the summit. The train doesn't stop. There's nothing here but wind and snow and star-filled sky, but it does slow slightly, as if in acknowledgement of the achievement of the long climb completed. For a moment you're traveling across the very spine of the mountains, balanced between two worlds. The valleys you climb from behind you, the valleys you'll descend into ahead of you. The view from here would be spectacular in daylight. You imagine, peaks stretching away in all directions, snowfields and glacier, the world spread out like a map. But in the starlit darkness, it's different. More felt than seen, more imagined than observed. You sense the great heights around you, the depths below, the tremendous scale of the landscape, but mostly what you see is snow and darkness and stars, beautiful in their simplicity. The train begins to descend. The change is subtle at first, just a slight acceleration, a fractional shift in momentum, but it's enough. The hardest part of the journey is over. From here it's all downhill, all carried by gravity as much as by the engine, all smooth gliding through the night. You realize suddenly how tired you are. The altitude, perhaps, or simply the late hour and the long journey from the station in the lowlands. Your legs feel heavy, your eyes burn with the need for sleep. The bed in the sleeping car calls to you with an urgency that can't be ignored much longer. You turn away from the window and its view of stars and snow, and walk slowly down the corridor toward the small door that bears your berth number, painted in neat brass figures that catch the dim light. The door opens smoothly at your touch, swinging inward to reveal a small, perfect sanctuary. The compartment is tiny, barely larger than the bed itself, but it's perfectly designed, every inch used with thoughtful efficiency. The bed runs along one wall, already made up with clean white linens and a thick duvet in a cover of deep blue. A pillow rests at the head, plump and inviting, with a second, smaller pillow beside it. The bed looks impossibly comfortable, impossibly welcoming, and just seeing it makes the need for sleep even more urgent. Above the bed, a small reading lamp is mounted to the wall, its brass arm folded down, its shade casting a small circle of warm light. There's a window, not large, but adequate, with a shade that can be pulled down for privacy or raised to watch the night pass by. Right now it's raised, and through it you can see snow and stars, the darkness sliding past as the train descends. The opposite wall holds a small fold-down sink, currently stowed away, and a cabinet for storing luggage. The wood throughout is rich and polished, glowing warmly in the lamplight. The floor is covered in the same carpet as the corridor, muffling sound, adding warmth. At the foot of the bed, folded neatly, is a robe, soft, thick, in a warm shade of grey. Slippers wait on the floor beside it. The compartment smells clean and fresh, with just the faintest hint of lavender, from the linens, perhaps, or from some sachet tucked away in the cabinet. It's a smell that speaks of care, of attention to comfort, of someone having prepared this space specifically for rest. You step inside and close the door behind you, and immediately the sounds of the train change. The door seals well, reducing the noise from the corridor, creating a small bubble of quiet. You can still hear the wheels on the rails. That sound is ever present, traveling through the structure of the train itself, but it's muffled now, softened, even more soothing than before. You sit on the edge of the bed to remove your shoes, and the mattress yields perfectly beneath you. Not too soft, not too firm, just right. Your shoes come off easily, and you set them aside beneath the bed. Your socks follow. The floor is warm beneath your bare feet, heated from below, a small luxury that makes you smile. Standing again takes effort. Your body is reluctant to move, wanting only to lie down, to surrender to the comfort that's so close. But there are a few more small preparations to make. You draw the window shade partway down, leaving just enough gap at the bottom to see out, but creating a greater sense of enclosure, of privacy, of a space that's truly your own. The lamp has a small dial that allows you to adjust its brightness. You turn it down until the light is barely more than a glow, just enough to see by, soft and amber and incredibly peaceful. You consider changing into the robe, but even that feels like too much effort. Instead, you simply loosen your collar, remove your outer layer, and prepare to slip beneath the covers as you are. The bed welcomes you like an embrace. The sheets are cool and crisp against your skin, that perfect coolness that you know will quickly warm to body temperature, creating a cocoon of perfect comfort. The duvet is weightier than you expected, substantial, grounding, like a gentle hand pressing you down into the mattress. You arrange the pillows, one under your head, one beside you to hold if you want, and settle yourself fully into the bed. The process of settling is itself a kind of meditation, a gentle ritual of finding the right position, the right angle, the right degree of coverage and support. You lie on your side at first, facing the window, so you can watch the night slide past. Your head sinks into the pillow with just the right amount of give, not so soft that it provides no support, not so firm that it pushes back uncomfortably. The pillowcase is cool against your cheek, smooth cotton that's been washed countless times until it's achieved that perfect softness that only comes with age and care. You can smell the faint scent of lavender in the fabric, or perhaps it's just the clean smell of well-laundered linen. But either way it's pleasant, soothing, adding one more small comfort to the accumulation of comforts that surrounds you. The duvet settles over you with a satisfying weight. It's heavier than you expected, filled with down, perhaps, or some modern equivalent, but the weight is comforting rather than oppressive. It feels like being held, like gentle pressure applied evenly across your entire body, grounding you, anchoring you to the bed, helping your nervous system understand that it's safe to relax completely, that nothing is going to disturb this rest, that you can let go of the vigilance that keeps you partly alert even in sleep. You adjust it slightly, pulling it up to your chin, feeling the soft fabric against your neck, against your hands as you tuck it around your shoulders. The warmth builds quickly underneath, your own body heat reflected back, captured and held by the insulating layers, creating a microclimate of perfect temperature, perfect comfort. Your body makes small adjustments automatically, without conscious thought. Your spine curves naturally into a comfortable position. Your shoulders find their place against the mattress, neither too forward nor too far back. Your upper arm lies along your side or stretches out across the pillow. You try both, settling on what feels best. Your lower arm tucks under the pillow, your hand finding a comfortable curl. Your legs bend slightly at the knee, the right one resting on the left, or perhaps you prefer them parallel. It doesn't matter, your body knows what it wants, what feels most restful. The mattress beneath you is remarkable. It must be specially designed for train travel, for people who need to sleep while in motion, because it seems to absorb the movement somehow, or perhaps to move with you so perfectly that you don't notice the transition between your movement and its movement. Springs, maybe, carefully calibrated to the specific rhythm of train travel. Or some more modern technology, foam or air or something engineered specifically for this purpose. Whatever it is, it works. You're supported everywhere you need support, and yet there are no pressure points, no places where your weight creates discomfort. You arrange the pillows, one under your head, one beside you to hold if you want, and settle yourself fully into the bed, lying on your side so you can see out the narrow gap beneath the window shade. Outside, the starlit darkness continues to flow past. The train has picked up speed on the descent, and the landscape moves by more quickly now, but it's still smooth, still gentle, nothing jarring or abrupt. Snow-covered slopes appear and disappear. The dark shapes of rocks. The occasional tree, bent by altitude and wind into sculptural forms. The motion of the train is more pronounced here than it was in the passenger carriage. The bed rocks with the train's movement, swaying slightly side to side, shifting forward and back with changes in speed or grade. It's like being in a cradle, like being rocked by some great, patient presence that wants nothing more than for you to sleep. The wheels sing their song on the rails. Clickety-click, clickety-click, a rhythm that has been the same for the entire journey, unchanging, reliable, hypnotic. Your breathing synchronizes with it without any conscious effort. Your heartbeat finds an echo in it. The boundary between your body and the train blurs and softens. The warmth beneath the duvet builds gradually, created by your own body heat and held by the covers. It spreads through your limbs, heavy and delicious, relaxing every muscle, every tendon, every tight place in your body. Your legs feel weighted, your arms feel soft, your shoulders sink into the mattress. Your eyes grow so heavy. Each blink lasts a little longer than the last. The darkness outside becomes less distinct, the shapes blurring together, the snow and stone and sky merging into a flow of shadow and faint light. You're aware of the train's small sounds, the creak of wood, the distant hiss of steam, the footsteps of someone passing in the corridor, muffled and faint. These sounds don't disturb you. They're part of the train's voice, part of the lullaby it's been singing since you boarded so many hours ago. Your thoughts have slowed, become fragmentary and dreamlike. You think of the station in the rain, of the warm carriages, of the forest and the rivers and the mountain towns, of the tea car and its gentle attendant, of the stars above the high pass. But the memories are soft and disconnected, images floating through your mind without attachment or urgency. The train rocks, and you rock with it. The rails sing, and you hear them from somewhere deep inside sleep's approach. The darkness flows past the window, and your eyes follow it without really seeing, watching without watching, drifting. The small lamp still glows, very faint, but you don't have the energy to reach for it, to turn it off. It doesn't matter. The light is so low it might as well be darkness anyway, and your eyes are closing, staying closed, opening only briefly and with great effort before closing again, staying closed longer each time. Everything is perfect. The bed, the warmth, the motion, the sound. Your body has surrendered completely, has released every bit of tension, every fragment of wakefulness. You're floating now, held between the mattress and the duvet, rocking with the train, breathing slowly in and out, each breath a little slower, a little deeper, a little more distant from your conscious awareness. The train descends through the night, carrying you down from the high pass, down through sleeping forests, past dark rivers, through valleys wrapped in quiet darkness. And you descend too, down through layers of relaxation, through levels of letting go, down toward the deep, peaceful places where dreams wait. The last thing you're aware of, or maybe already dreaming of, is the sense of being carried, being held, being taken somewhere safe by something strong and gentle that will not fail, that will keep moving through the night, that will watch over your rest. The train rocks. The wheels sing. The darkness flows. And you sleep. The world has become very soft. You're no longer quite sure where you are, whether you're still in the small compartment, or whether you've slipped into some other space, some gentler realm where the edges of things blur and merge. The motion continues, that endless rocking, but it might be the train or it might be something else. The sound continues, that rhythmic pattern, but it's distant now, muffled, like listening to waves from far inland. Time has lost its meaning. You might have been asleep for minutes or hours. The train might be miles from where you last noticed, Or it might be stopped at some quiet siding, waiting for morning. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. There's only this: the warmth, the softness, the gentle movement, the descent into deeper peace. Images drift through your awareness like clouds. The lanterns at the station, glowing in the rain. The trees sliding past in the darkness, their branches reaching up toward the hidden sky. The river, smooth and dark, reflecting fragments of light. The stars above the high pass, sharp and bright and infinitely far away. But the images don't stay. They appear and dissolve, like breath on a cold window, like patterns in spilled water. You watch them without attachment, without trying to hold on to them, letting them come and go as they will. The rocking continues, so gentle, so slow. Back and forth, side to side, up and down in long, easy swells. Like floating on calm water. Like being held in gentle arms. Like the breathing of something vast and kind. Your body has disappeared. You're aware of it in the same way you're aware of the bed, as something soft and warm and comfortable, but not as something separate from yourself. There's no boundary anymore between your body and the warmth, between your breath and the rhythm of the train, between your slow heartbeat and the pulse of wheels on rails. Sounds come from far away. The train is passing through somewhere. You sense it more than know it. Perhaps another town, lights drifting past in the darkness, windows glowing gold and amber. Perhaps a forest, trees crowding close, their presence felt more than seen. Perhaps open country, fields spreading away under starlight. It doesn't matter where. Geography has fallen away. Direction has become meaningless. There's only the train, moving through the night, carrying you deeper and deeper into rest. The sound of the wheels has changed, or perhaps your hearing has changed. It's not clickety-click anymore, but something softer, more continuous, like a long, sustained note, like the hum of the earth itself, like the sound that might exist in the spaces between sounds, the silence that underlies all noise. Your breathing has slowed to almost nothing. Each breath takes forever, a long, slow drawing in of air, so gentle you barely notice it, and then an even longer, softer release, the air leaving your lungs like smoke, like mist, like a sigh too quiet to be heard. The darkness behind your closed eyes is not black but deep blue, or perhaps purple, or perhaps some color that has no name, a color that exists only in the depths of sleep. And in that colored darkness, shapes move, not frightening, not even distinct enough to be identified, just movements, flowings, patterns of lighter and darker that drift and swirl and merge. The train is descending still. You can feel it in some deep part of yourself that's still connected to the physical world, a gentle downward motion, a easing of altitude, a return toward the valleys and the lowlands and the places where the air is thick and warm. But you're descending too, faster than the train, deeper than any valley. Down through layers of consciousness, through levels of rest, through the soft, billowing clouds of sleep, down toward the deepest places, the quiet places, the places where you don't dream because you're too deep for dreams, where there's only rest, pure and simple and perfect. The sound fades. The motion fades. The last traces of awareness begin to fade. You're letting go of everything, the train, the night, the journey, even the sense of yourself as someone traveling. All of it dissolves, softens, becomes indistinct. There's just warmth now. Just softness. Just the gentle, almost imperceptible rocking. Just the slow, slow rhythm of breath. Just the color behind closed eyes. Just the descent, continuing, deepening, carrying you down. Down into peace. Down into silence. Down into the soft, dark, comfortable depths where nothing disturbs and nothing troubles and nothing needs your attention or your awareness or your wakefulness. The train moves through the night. The wheels turn on the rails. The stars shine above, cold and distant and beautiful. The mountains rise in their patient heights. The rivers flow in their ancient courses. The towns sleep, their lights burning softly through the hours of darkness. And you sleep too. Deep, deep sleep. Peaceful sleep. The kind of sleep where you don't stir, don't wake, don't surface toward consciousness until the natural time, until your body has taken all the rest it needs, until the deep work of sleep has been completed and you rise slowly, gently, easily toward morning. But that's far away still. Hours away. A different chapter entirely. For now, there's only this: the darkness, the warmth, the soft embrace of perfect rest. The train carries you. The night holds you. Sleep claims you. And everything is well. The motion continues, patient and endless. The wheels turn, singing their quiet song. And you rest, cradled in the darkness, in the warmth, in the gentle rocking of the train making its way through the peaceful night. Rest now. Let everything go. Sleep well. Sleep deeply. Let the night take care of the rest. Good night. And when you're ready, we'll see you in the next one.